here.
Like the national anthem for me. Crank it up, baby.
Right? I believe that this is probably one of the best introductions, and because we can use it for 15 seconds, we can use this in our stream.
Yeah.
And we won't get YouTube won't kill us. So I think we're good there.
No. So it's too bad it's 15 seconds, because I would have said just play it the whole show.
Right. Exactly. Dan Brown, the famous Dan Brown, you're already getting that moniker. People are hearing about you and they're calling you the famous Dan Brown, which I agree with.
Well, just to be clear, I'm not the Da Vinci Code guy, although I do get emails periodically for that guy. I sometimes get asked to sign a book for that guy. So I'm the other famous Dan Brown.
Okay. Do you have to solve riddles and things like that? They send you a bunch of Illuminati stuff?
No, but the funniest email I got was just somebody ripping me for my inaccuracies of the Catholic Church, and you should do some research before you're writing, and what are you doing? You should think before you write. And well, actually, I agree with you, because
I'm a journalist.
If you researched, you'd realize I'm not that guy.
And then you said, nudge, nudge. Hey, that's a book of fiction that other guy wrote. It's not real. That's pretty funny, though. So I took the liberty to put another Easter egg here in the show, that we have to come up with a name of our show. Now, you're going to get the, let me see if I can do this. My business partner there is always clowning on me. Oh, Boomer, he can't figure out the software there. Yeah, sometimes I can't. And
we're young pups.
Where was that I was looking at there? Yeah, that's funny. I literally can't find it. But what I can find is this, Dan. So this is the famous Dan Brown. And we'll show this later in the show. Dan works for The Athletic. He's a senior writer and editor there. Phenomenal stuff. And he wrote a book, by the way, and he was showing Taylor the book right there. That's the picture. And we'll talk way more about that. But we'll show that later. I actually can't find what I was doing here. So G's right. I was going to put on the bottom here, Knowledge Phone 68.
Oh, I know what that means. That is an old school sports radio reference. Maybe does Ginger know what a radio is? No.
I don't think so.
Yeah. No, this was old school. It was one of the first sports talk radio shows in the country, was Sports Phone 68 on KNBR in San Francisco, hosted by Ken Dito.
Yes. The Candido. And remember, it's the whole thing. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Now we got people typing in on the chat here.
They are. And I did promise
chatter.
I did promise G that I would find the live here. So this is funny. I put in a topic here. I didn't think it would actually put it in the live stream, but it did. We are called right now Knowledge Phone 68.
No, I'm curious. Did you ever call in a Sports Phone 68? And
I did. I called in when I was, I think, when the Niners were in the Super Bowl in 81, right? 81, 82 season. And then 83, 84 season.
Yeah.
Right. So they were playing the Dolphins, I think. And I called in. I was a little 13-year-old guy there. And I called in and I said, hello, I have a prediction here. I think Fred Dean is going to sack Dan Marino a bunch of times. And they loved it that there's a kid on and they're like, yeah. So I did call and I got on.
I don't remember. Did Fred Dean get a sack in that game of Marino?
I don't remember either. I hope so. All I remember is the Niners won that game, and I was pretty excited about that. Huge Niner fan. And I know, I was a Raider fan, but then, it's that Bay Area thing, you know. So people may ask, how do you guys know each other? Fun facts. We literally grew up in the same area. Now, Ginger was reading your bio. She's like, "What is katata? What kotata?"
First of all, it's pronounced Katati with the Katati accent. It's a town in Northern California because I had a lot of people. You might have had the same experience. I say I'm from Katati, and they go, "Oh, I know that by San Diego," because it sounds very Southern California. Sure. Oh
Yeah.
no, It's about, I don't know, 50 miles north of San Francisco, in Sonoma County, kind of wine country adjacent. Um, it was kind of a nothing town when we were growing up. Maybe a population of 3,000 people. Katati.
Very small.
It's much bigger now, and it is famous not because of us, but since we've left. The Accordion Festival in Katati is a legit travel destination for a lot of people. The Katati Accordion Festival.
Oh, well, Dan, one of these days we will be live from there. You and I will do a show live from the
And somebody could play
Katati
"Style" by
Accordion.
Taylor Swift on the accordion. Perfect.
Yes.
I can see it.
Yes, I agree. One of my favorite accordion songs, because I love the movie Groundhog Day, is the Punxsutawney polka. Da 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 ba 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 ba.
Maybe we could do a whole segment sometime on your favorite accordion songs and just go through your top 20, top 30.
Let's do it. And then maybe we could get Taylor on as well, and she could comment on which, she agrees with us or disagrees. She could be the tie-breaking vote.
So Ginger says here, my dad and uncle used to play the accordion, so you need to ask them if they're familiar with the Katati Accordion Festival. Weird Al has played there in the past because he's a big accordion aficionado.
I love that guy.
There's a statue in the park of an accordion festival, and he was, my first girlfriend in high school was Maureen Tronis.
Oh, I remember her.
Her aunt dated that accordion player, so I'm like, I know a statue.
Wow.
Yeah, he was, I guess, I met him a couple times, but I was, I had no respect for accordion. He's like a really influential, charismatic figure in the accordion, Illuminati, jet-setting community there.
This is incredible information. Already, Knowledge Phone 68 is off the hook. Get it?
Got any kids calling in to ask us about accordions?
Yeah, eventually when I figure, that's pretty good. You actually read the chat. When I figure out how to get this thing up, I will we will take live questions. Yeah, see, that's the thing is the way I have my sound set up, I just got like a echo. Like I said, I might break the universe if I start playing this, but yeah. So anyway, I'll let that go. But yes, eventually our show, we will take questions from the audience. I think you're an incredible resource. Well, I don't think you're an incredible resource. I know you are an incredible resource. So part of this show talking about accordions and going to Katati and, maybe the Rohnert Park Crane Melon Festival, Rohnert Park was very famous for that.
Yeah.
We will definitely be talking about mentorship and sports journalism and how to get there. And I love this story. My favorite story, and our pre-meeting, I told you about this. My favorite story is you were a little kid. I don't know, was that junior high or elementary school that you wrote that letter to Bob Lurie?
No, it would have been 81. So where were we? We were on the same path. We were in middle school.
Junior high.
Yeah,
junior high. Yeah. So you wrote a letter. So tell our peeps about that.
Okay.
About that letter. That's incredible.
So, I don't think you ever think you know more in the world than when you're like 8 or 9 or 10, like you've got all the answers to everything. And I would watch baseball and started considering myself a baseball expert. And the Giants fired their manager. They fired Joe Altobelli and needed a replacement. And I wrote to the owner and said, I should become the manager of your team. I think I was 12. Gave him a proposed lineup. Explained my leadership style. Wrote directly. Didn't go to the general manager. I went straight to the owner and said, "I want to be the manager, and here's why." And he wrote. They went with some guy, Frank Robinson, right? who
Yeah,
was a
that
Hall
guy.
of Fame baseball player, distinguished manager already, had been the first black manager in the major leagues. Over me, debatable decision, but manager of the year kind of guy. But the owner took or somebody in the ownership's office, but at that time I believe deeply that it was straight from the owner, wrote back and gave me a very encouraging letter and said, this time we've made the decision to go with Frank Robinson, blah blah, and kind of gave me some credibility, make me feel like I was a player, and I hung that up in my wall for a long, long time. There were some instances like that where I started feeling validated in, not just, I don't know. He obviously he's not saying you're qualified to be manager, and obviously I wasn't. But I'm just saying writing, being able to put stuff into words and put it out there to the universe and have it be like treated respectfully, politely, I found really, really cool. One of my favorite stories, a few years after that, I just started taking to, I liked writing to baseball players and sending autograph requests. But it really kind of put my heart into the letter and do some research and explain why it wasn't this form letter, it was distinct to each ball player. And I wrote one to Dusty Baker, and who at that time was a player for the Dodgers, and said, like, even though I'm a Giants fan, I have a great respect for the way you play from the other side. And he wrote back, not just like the stamp letter, but you send a self-addressed stamp envelope. But he sent it back and wrote on the back of the envelope, "Danny, that was a great letter. Work hard in school and good luck." And then signed the card. And I thought, well, if Dusty Baker thinks I'm a good writer, like I'm starting to build, like I could be a sports writer. Like this guy has said, this guy who's a star baseball player said, like, hey, that was a great letter. Keep on writing, keep working hard. So to make a long story long, I ended up being the Giants beat writer while he was manager, and then never really. I don't know. It was a very professional relationship. He's the greatest guy I've ever covered. Could tell a million stories all about Hank Aaron, Sandy Koufax, modern day players, musicians. He's the most interesting man in the world kind of guy. And we became friendly. I still never told him about the letter. He retired. Still never told him about the letter. Years later, the Giants were bringing him back into the fold for one of those. It was between his managing stints. He hadn't gone to the Astros yet, and the Giants brought him back for one of these almost ceremonial positions, like front office advisor. And UC Merced was going to host him on a panel talk, and they said, "Do you want to write about it?" I said, "Sure." And they were going to set up a phone interview, and it never happened. They finally said, "Do you want to host the panel?" Like, yeah. I know Dusty's stories. Like, I know what buttons to push. So I hosted this panel with Dusty Baker on a stage for a UC Merced fundraiser, packed house, and got him to tell those Hank Aaron stories and the Sandy Koufax stories. And the people had said, like, we're going to give the signal at 20 minutes and cut them off. So 20 minutes in, I look over and they're making the motion. I'm like, well, Dusty, we've come to the end of our time. And he goes, no, we ain't. Who wants to hear more stories? And the crowd roars in approval. So at some point, I had it was like playing in overtime and sudden death. And I said, Dusty, he mentioned somebody that was a source of inspiration. I said, Dusty, I've never told you this, but when I was a kid and I told the story about the letter and how much it meant to me, and I said, I can't believe I'm on a stage with you right now in this moment. And he stood up and hugged me and whispers, like, why did you never tell me that before? And I said, it was never the right time, but it was somehow that was the right time. Probably 35 years later after that letter. So
that's an incredible story, my man.
Funny. Like, so to the point, like some of the stuff you're doing now, even if you're really young and starting out, you are on some kind of path, is the point of that story. You might not know it, but you're on a path.
And what I was always struck with, you were very passionate about that. Even when, that's the letter I remember. You did have it hanging in your house there. When I would come over to hang with you, I saw that letter and I heard the whole story with that. You were always passionate about that. So talk a bit about that. I mean, I saw that you were passionate about it. And was that just a relentless, I'm going to do it? Or were there ever periods of confusion or, maybe I'm going to take this path or this path?
It's a good question because there was never any question about the path, and I don't think it was really a matter of like an intellectual decision. It just felt right. And when I talk to people about their career decisions or whatever they want to do, like I can only speak to this little narrow strip of life, like sports media, but whatever you do in life, it should be where you feel like this is it, this is where I belong. Sometimes it's a science lab, or you pick up a guitar, or you're under the hood of a car, or wherever that is where you just feel like your true self. That should be your job. It shouldn't be like, well, we're going to make the most money as a lawyer or as a banker, whatever. It should be where you feel you fit in this universe, because that's where you're going to have the most success. And I've heard, I can't remember who it was. There's variations of the story over the years where somebody wants to be like a baseball player, and they said, I never had a plan B. I never thought, well, if this doesn't work out, I'm going to go into ad sales, or I'm going to go into they never. And I don't know if that's super healthy. Like it's logically, it makes sense to have a backup plan to get a degree in something. If you're going to be think, oh, I'm going to be a stand-up comedian, and you're not funny, you might have something. But if you know deep in your heart that that's where you're supposed to be, then dedicating all of your attentions and aspirations in that direction is it can pay off.
I love that, though. I do coach people on that specific thing.
Mm-hmm.
They say, this is what I want to do. I'm relentless about it. I want to do this. And they don't per se have a backup plan, which and they worry about it. They say, well, maybe I should I have a backup plan? Yes. Intellectually thinking, yes, you should probably have a backup plan. But I also come from this belief that it's going to work out one way or the other. I mean, you're either going to make it in whatever you're passionate about, mm-hmm. or you're going to pivot at some point.
Mm-hmm.
It's just about, like, if you have that passion and that hunger, like I saw in you, you had that passion and hunger in journalism. And however it went, even if that wasn't your path, I bet you could harness that in a different way. I mean, professional fantasy baseball player, you are like completely like one of the best fantasy baseball drafters I've ever met in my life. How you would get like Shane Mack and people like that for 10 cents. I was like, oh, wow. So I would think that, it is that passion. And I like that you said that there.
Yeah, and so I think there's an advantage to, it's a gift that, like I said, it's not a conscious decision. It's just like, I felt like this is where I should go. So, and it's a great advantage because I started early, right? I started working for there was our high school, Rancho Cotati, shout out Cougars. We didn't have a high school newspaper, so there was no outlet for me to get started there. But the town had the Roanoke Park Cotati Clarion. Sports editor Dora Gossage. And I went in and volunteered to do stuff. And I started covering JV baseball. And I was terrible. I remember I turned in my first story to Dora Gossage, and that there was no, like, it's not like you email it in back then. I hand wrote it on a thing, gave it to her. She typed it in, and I was so excited. And the paper came out, and I put in the quarter to buy the thing out of the rack, because that's how we did it. Where's Ginger yelling at me for being a student?
That is. She doesn't. And she's probably like in the question on that too.
Probably almost every word in the story that I had submitted was changed in some way. Like there was if you were to circle something that stayed in place, it might have been 10 words. Like, not joking. It was eviscerated, rewritten, reconstructed, and I was mad. Like, how dare you mess with my prose? It's because she knew what she was doing, and I was a kid thinking I was Hemingway. And that did not go away. I mean, like, happened the second story, third story, fourth story. But by the time I got to UC Davis, shout out Aggies with Troy Parkins, like, I still wasn't good, but I was better than I had gone through some growing pains. I was ahead of the game. And I think that people who find their path early, like me and Taylor Swift, you are learning, growing, developing, getting the mistakes behind you, and because you're not going to escape that part of the process. when you start a pursuit, a passion, you don't start at, this level. You start at the bottom. And the quicker you can get that out of the way, then the whole key, I should say, by the way, now that I'm old enough to dispense wisdom, is to know you suck. Like, I think there's people who think, well, this is good, or she changed it, but what was she doing? But like, that was really good. Like, no, it wasn't. And you have to realize that you aren't as good as you think you are. There's a process from being a amateur to being a pro. In baseball, in football, in whatever you are going up a ladder, and it's one step at a time kind of thing. Drop some cliches, but I think I've met a lot of young writers who are promising, but they don't realize their flaws, and they get stuck and they don't make it. And some of the best writers I know are also the most insecure writers I know, because even if they're proven, got a track record, whatever, they know sometimes they write something terrible and they struggle and they're insecure and they might not be able to do it this time, or maybe this time the words don't come. And so they're searching for how do we get the best out of today. And I think that's a big key. Like, people talk about, you got to have confidence. Well, a little insecurity and a little humility is okay too.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's fascinating. If you can't see the ships coming for you that are going to land on shore, you're gonna get slaughtered when whoever's in those ships come to get you. I always use that one. You got to be able to see the ships. So that's fascinating, Dan. And as we continue this and digging into the whole idea of journalism, that is something there. And I know that's my background too. That there's a part of you that is I want to say a people pleaser, but you want people to accept your content. You want people to enjoy your content. Even this right here, if our chat was blowing up, you suck, you guys are terrible. Taylor who? What? This is a sports show. Why is Taylor Swift on here?
Accordion.
We would be reading that and be like, it's not going to make you feel good, because that's the human context, right? So I think what would be valuable as we, keep peeling this onion back is that part of it right there, that you see what are the blockages that you see people have. Perfectionism. You just talked about right there was imposter syndrome, right? You could say I'm a great writer and I have all these awards, but oh man, I got to write something tomorrow. What if it just sucks?
Yeah.
And then what if the next one sucks and the next one sucks? Then I suck, right?
It's a terrible feeling, but it's like, all these sports analogies, but think about like Steve Kerr wins 4 championships with the Warriors. Bruce Bochy won 3 with the Giants. But you'd see, like, if they were having a down season, we got to get rid of Bochy. Like, even after they'd won 3 titles, like, he doesn't know how to manage a bullpen. Like, the criticism, the success is short-lived and forgotten quickly. And if he's not proving himself, like, there's no like, hey, with me there is, but with the rational, like, hey, that guy won 3 championships. He knows what he's doing. There's some other factors why they might not be doing good. Steve Kerr has taken a lot of heat, the last couple of years, because the team's they're older, they're injured, whatever, and the team isn't as good. And Kerr takes a lot of heat. He built up. So what I'm saying is you never make it. You are as good as you are now.
Yeah. Could you imagine, let's just say you're a software engineer for a company and you write some code and it maybe isn't up to par. And then people start posting on the Slack channel, man, Joe, what a bum. That guy's a bum. Did you see the code he wrote?
Yeah.
But if you think about it, that's kind of a funny analogy there. Sports just magnifies it, of course, right? Because everybody has an opinion. However, in a company, in a organization, in a department, the individual person might feel like that. That, right? I'm sure they're always thinking about, okay, how do I get better? Or maybe they're thinking the opposite, which is how do I keep my head low so I don't get clipped? That's kind of scary there, is because it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
I've taken, like, I used to really unnerve if I'd write a story and maybe 30 comments are good, and then one would say this sucks, it's really stupid. And if there was a time in my life where I would fixate on that for the next week, and it really unnerved me. I think the key with criticism is you don't have to, and feedback for that matter too, even if it's not me, even if it's a boss saying, hey, look, next time you should think about doing it this way. I don't think it's necessarily saying, yeah, okay, but it's always considering it. Like, is that a better way to do it? Is it there's a lot of, and I'm sure I've done it. You reject it outright. Like, no, I'm going to stick with what I'm doing. Well, that can be true, but you should consider the feedback, because what I found when I was a writer is I would write something and I would send it to somebody and they would say like, hey, it takes you too long to get to the point. I don't know what you're going for here. And I'm thinking these illiterate, they don't understand my genius. And then
ADD.
Then I send it to somebody else and they go, it takes you too long to get to the point. And I found that over and over again, that if somebody said it, it was often echoed by somebody else down the chain. So I started listening to the first person instead. I do think that even the guy who says you suck, there'll be that minute was like, did I miss it? And I think that's just a helpful check-in. You don't have to buy it, but you have to shop it. I mean, you have to study it.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more there. When we talk about leadership coaching and mentorship and all that, and we talked about this, a couple weeks ago, and we did talk about the whole thing about feedback and how, some young journalists take the feedback as personal, but it's not personal. I mean, feedback is not personal, right? You have acknowledgement and then you have feedback, and generally feedback is what's in the gap. What is in the gap to make you or your piece that you wrote greater?
Yeah.
Right. Acknowledgement is, Dan, you're a great guy. Great Dan Brown. Dan Brown has all these awards. He has a Hall of Fame vote. He's a great writer. He's da 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 da. Acknowledgement. Feedback could be, the other side of it, where you get that from people. Now, they may not be as eloquent with you suck, but they may say, well, yeah, hey, Dan, you didn't get to the point quick enough. You lost me around the fifth paragraph. And you're like, oh, okay. And to your point, it's not personal. It's maybe other people are seeing it that way, right?
Yeah, and I don't know how this applies to other disciplines, but I know, like, if I sent you a draft right now and you said this is the worst thing I've ever read, I would not be offended at all, because I have a chance to fix it. Once something is published and it's out there in the universe and it's on The Athletic and you read it and go, hey, that was the worst thing I've ever read, and it's too late, I can't fix it, that will knock me out. That will knock me down, because I can't. So it's important, I think, for the person giving feedback to remember, like, what, the timing of it. Is it constructive? Is it useful? Is it, when's the right time? For me, it's before as early as possible. But once it's so in that case, maybe somebody could say, "Hey, look, next time you could consider blah blah blah," instead of saying this sucks. What were you doing? Because that would knock me out. And I have a collection of scars somewhere in here from the times that happened. So one guy, John Shea from the Chronicle, I wrote a story that was pretty good. Most readers liked it. And he came up and said, hey, look, I have much respect for you, but I think that's the worst thing you've ever written.
Oh, my God. You're like, oh, thank you, sir. Thank you for the feedback. To your point, feedback is if it's provided after the train's already left the station, then yeah, you're right. It probably isn't going to land, really. So that is something. When you work with a younger journalist there, how is that mentorship relationship with them? Is it a constant part of feedback, and what types of feedback do you provide? Are you more providing on the technical side, the blocking and tackling, so to speak?
Yeah.
Or is it like just in general the other side of it, the soft skills, like professionalism? How do you get an interview? How do you work an interview? How do you read the room?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good question. So just for your listeners here, for your viewers, when I became more of an editor role than a writer role at The Athletic, the question, it was specifically in the baseball department. The question is, what teams did you want to be in charge of? What teams do you want to maybe oversee? And I said, I don't care about the teams, but just give me the younger writers or maybe the struggling writers, and I'll coach them up. I like doing the mentor thing. And so that's my role, is to really work with writers who have less experience than some of the other, we have so many good and established writers at the Athletic, and they wouldn't give me a whole lot to do because there's, but with the young people, I can kind of guide them. So really what I try to focus on mostly is the writing, is the storytelling. Like, where do you start? Where do you end? How do you let the information unspool? What kind of information do you have to get in there? The feedback thing is difficult because baseball, and like it's like all life, right? So this probably applies to every job. You finish one thing, you're on to the next. You finish that, you're on to the next. You finish that, you're on to the next. So there's really no time in the given day to like, hey, let's reflect and talk this over and really think about like how this came to be. What was but and some stories are more important than others, right? If it's a Giants mailbag answering your questions, or Dodgers injury report, let's just bang it out of there. But a thoughtful feature, or maybe it's something about a delicate topic like an arrest, or somebody was on bereavement leave and they're back and trying to get back in the flow of, like, what's the style, what's the approach you want to take on that kind of story. So I always try to tell them, like, I don't have all the answers. Like, I'm giving you suggestions. You can take them or leave them. Because I think a lot of editors, maybe you've had some of these, but they're a little heavy-handed. Like, you should do it this way. It should sound like this. This should be your first. Like, I've had those. Mm-hmm. I think you got to find your own way so it's in your voice. But we've got a writer who starts a lot of his stories and with a lot of background. And I say, like, hey man, in today's sports media landscape, people know if they're an Athletic subscriber, chances are they know who won or lost, when this player was signed, whatever. They need you to bring something new to the table. What's something you heard behind the scenes? What's something nobody else would know? What's maybe look ahead. What's something you heard about the way the pitching matchup might shape up tomorrow? Like, give people a reason to read you. And I think that my friend Tim Kawakami, who's a former Athletic guy now at the Standard in San Francisco, but he said, look, I hope Ginger's still there because I got more boomer. This is a boomer reference. But when you and I were growing up or working at the campus newspaper, there was a jump. And the jump meant, the first couple paragraphs on that front page. And then if you're going to turn to page 8, like it says, see page 8, you better have hooked them in those first 3 or 4 paragraphs. Yeah. Let them know what's up. Let them know what's coming. Make sure they know why it's important. Get me hooked, and then I'll flip the pages and read the rest of it. And for the non-newspaper generation who they've got blogs and websites where there is no jump, there tends to be a longer wind-up, and there tends to be less of the, I think, kind of essential points of journalism, which is, I don't necessarily believe in the 5 Ws, that's a bygone construct. But there's some of that, like, why does this story matter? Why should I keep reading? What can I do to get your attention? What's one simple trick, and this isn't like you wouldn't build a story around this, but like, say a player gets injured. Say Brock Purdy gets, that's too, like, say, McCaffrey's hurt, whatever. You would start very soon after that explaining who's going to take his place, what they're about, what do they bring to the table, because that's what fans are going to know. Well, who takes his place? Like, who should I pick up on my fantasy league?
There you go.
Yeah. I mean, for real, like, who should I pick up on my fantasy league is a sports reader question. So when you say the second baseman's out, who's going to be the new second baseman? Remember when Kirby Puckett played second base for the Twins, and we could?
Oh my God, that was like godsend. I was able to plug him in as middle infield.
Was that you had him?
Him and Walt Weiss. It was like amazing.
Yeah. So you're providing a reader service. You're not just bloviating and telling a story and making, trying to come up with like clever turns of phrase. You are illuminating the reader in some important way.
I love that. And that's it. What I learned from journalism, I took that into the business world, and I would write emails back at AOL. So yeah, G would be clowning on me about that. Oh, back in 1912 when you were with America Online.
And she said she did grow up with reading the newspaper with breakfast. So
see, well, as you get to know G, and our show is going to re-premiere in March. She is the oldest 23-year-old in the world. So of course she's read newspapers. She subscribes to Better Homes and Gardens, the actual magazine. And she uses terms like swell and, I reckon, things like that. So,
Ginger, have you ever used a payphone? Our operators are standing by.
See, yeah, that's one there. But I'll tell you this, my background in journalism helped with business because I use that concept of the inverted pyramid. What's important here goes to least important down here. So it was that hook. I was used to writing hooks. I was used to writing the lead, right? What'd she say?
She said, Dan, I am a proponent of the fax machine. I'll allow it.
Yeah, she did go on about that for a bit. So yeah, that's interesting. She wants to bring the fax machine back again. Make the fax machine great again. Maybe. Okay. So that's really cool. And like I said, subsequent shows, we're going to talk through some of this stuff, right? We may take one topic that right there, say, okay, this is how it relates to sports journalism, but how does this relate to communication in general? Yeah. See, that kind of stuff. So my editors that are going to cut this up right here, this 40-minute segment, they're going to cut that thing up. Really, right? When we start playing these things and it starts getting served to other people, they can skip it at any time. So really it becomes the whole concept of the first 3 to 7 seconds, right? Is when you get them 3 to 7 seconds. So what does that look like? How does that go? How does that land? You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, because you think as a writer, you're like, oh, I'm being so writerly. But as a consumer, we skip. If something's boring, I skip. If I'm reading a story, I'm like, what's the point here? An email, Instagram reel, they're only a couple seconds. But if it's like starting to drag, I'm out. What's the next thing? And that you have to remember that as a writer, as a producer of content, like, what's going to make me stick around? Why will I stop and take what makes this special, distinct? That I gotta drop what I'm doing. Like, take all of this one.
Yeah, and this is our first show. Obviously, we're still working out the format and all that kind of stuff. But I'll tell you this: how it works is just we continue to produce great content. We get our content out there. These videos are going to be living in my YouTube channel, your YouTube channel, right? We're going to share this content. And then people, this is, I say that think of what we're doing here, content creation, as there's no time. Time doesn't exist, right? It's 4-dimensional, back and forth though. So you can go back in the time. Maybe in our 80th show that we're at the accordion festival, somebody stumbles upon us because they're like, wow, these guys are kind of cool talking about this accordion stuff. Who are they? And then they would go to our channel and then they might find this right here, the genesis of that start, but the genesis of where the accordion stuff came from, because we're going to clip that one out. That's some good stuff right there.
That's good. We can look into the future and see accordion content. It's coming, baby. It's coming.
Yeah. And when Taylor does get on our show, she's going to say, yeah, your producers reached out to me about this accordion stuff. I just had to know what was up. Because, she's probably cool like that. Like, these guys are zany.
It's funny. I was at the Ricky Henderson Celebration of Life on Saturday. For all you young viewers like Ginger, Ricky Henderson was a star of some note in the 1980s, stole a lot of bases, and died December 20th, a beloved figure in Oakland. So in Oakland, the A's are leaving. So this is essentially it's really literally and symbolically the death of Oakland baseball was going to the Celebration of Life. Wow. There's a side note to that. I met a former A's broadcaster named, do you know Robert Bwan? Did you ever listen to Robert Bwan? He had A's podcast and did some pregame stuff. No. Anyway, he lives in Nashville, and he goes, yeah, I got to talk to my girl Taylor. I'm like, ha ha ha. And he goes, no, really. And he living in Nashville, he's had her on the show, and he got Taylor to do the intro. Hey, you're listening to Country Fastball with Robert. So that should be our new goal.
Okay, done.
Done.
That's it. That's it. Done. Okay. Well, speaking of that, we're up almost up on our time, but I want to hear from you. Taylor Swift is very important, apparently, in the media zeitgeist with what's going on at the Super Bowl. So I want to hear your thoughts on the Super Bowl. Who do you think's going to win?
It's I read, in the Athletic, not by me, but one of my fellow read about how this might be one of the most evenly matched Super Bowls ever. You look at
Ooh,
the Eagles are probably have the better roster. The Chiefs have the better, obviously, Super Bowl pedigree, and they've been doing the same thing for a long time. And I kind of think I buy that reasoning. I picked the Chiefs. I remember a long time ago when I was talking to somebody about whether a football coach was good or not, and was talking about the strategic decisions and some of their play designs. And this other person had been a player and said, "Oh, that's interesting. You focus on the strategy. I look at the execution." And I think that when I watch an Andy Reid team, this particular Andy Reid Chiefs generation playing, their execution on 3rd and 5, on 4th and goal, everybody's in the right spot at the right time. The play against the Bills, they just kind of wrapped it up. They needed one more first down to kill the clock. It was a brilliant play to design. It was elaborate, but everybody ended up where they were supposed to be. And it was so easy to get 5 yards, 7 yards against one of the best defenses in the NFL. So I think that those 2 or 3 plays in the Super Bowl that will define the winner and loser, the Chiefs will be where they're supposed to be and do what they're supposed to do.
that's good. I mean, that's good insight right there. That last play, the last Super Bowl, when they scored that was exactly it.
Yeah,
They needed 5 yards. It was automatic. Everybody was where they were supposed to be. That guy had so much separation there. I mean, yeah.
So the Eagles, they could win it. I think they're better. I think they're more talented. I think they're really good. Barkley has not been stopped, and if you watch it, it's because the offensive line is blowing holes, and then Barkley does the rest. So it could be super compelling, and I think it could be one of the great Super Bowls.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope it's a great game. Yeah, Saquon is awesome. And I do know a lot of New York Giants fans, and they're pretty mad right now.
That's a good 7-second clip, right? With the GM talking about, we don't need Saquon Barkley. We can replace him.
Yeah, we'll have to piece that one in here and ship this to all our Giants fans out there. So, yeah, I think the Chiefs are favored by 1.5. I think it went down in Vegas to a point. So you're right there, spot on. It's almost a toss-up. So we'll see what happens.
Wait, what's your prediction?
We'll see. I'm with you, man. Like, if I had to put money on it, right? If I had to bet money, it would be on the Chiefs. But my heart wants the Eagles to win because it is that whole point about Saquon Barkley. I just love watching that guy play. That dude, and if he was greedy, he would have ran for 2,500 yards. Mm-hmm. Like, seriously, they took that guy out of the game. Like, and I'm an old school guy, right? I love the running game. I love my favorite 49er, Frank Gore. I loved the running game, right? Run the ball. So I'm rooting for Saquon. I'm rooting for the Eagles, but I think the Chiefs are going to win. That's my prediction.
Okay.
So if I was going to put money on it, yeah, they're going to win by it's going to be close. They'll win by, some Mahomes' kind of thing, a field goal at the end, I'll say. So, but we'll see how good our prediction glasses are next week because we're going to be here same time, same bat channel. Now, CG knows that because I use that a lot. She's like, what is that exactly? I'm like, remember Batman, Bat Channel. And anyway, so this QR code here, this is how you get to the famous Dan Brown right here. And
do that. 1, 2, 3.
All right, that's going on Instagram. That is going on Instagram the week that was. Dan, thank you for being here. And I'm looking forward to not just more entertaining times and entertaining content, but really people that want to get into sports journalism. And I'll even branch that out into let's just say communication, mass communicate, have your communication better, speaking, writing, all of that, right? Question asking, listening. You can't be a journalist without listening. So thank you so much for being here. And I will see you next week.
All right, Troy. Can't wait.
All right. See ya.
Bye.